Welcome back to an episode of the FNtasia podcast. We have a weird episode today. I'll just come out and say it. It's a weird one because for any of you who are avid FNtasia podcast Twitter followers, you'll know that the plan for this week was an interview with Cooper. We were gonna get on a call with Cooper, talk with him. It's been long overdue. We wanted to talk to Cooper for a while. And we couldn't get Cooper this week, so we got someone else from Dignitas instead. Couldn't get a player, but we just won't get anyone from the Oregon.
Had to sell for just the low.
Yeah, we'll get whoever we can get. So we got Clutch on this week. Clutch has actually been involved in the podcast for a long time, so it's kind of overdue in an extent. I never thought we'd see Clutch on camera. It's actually a big day. But no, Cooper, we will be doing a Cooper interview still. He is currently like at home, I think, and he's not got like a camera at his home set up. So when he's back in Dallas in a couple of days, we'll record with him and you know, get some insight into what's been going on with him. We got Teddy on the pod as well today. Hello, Teddy.
Oh, this is going to be some gritty podcasting.
It is. I think we need to talk about how Teddy is now. Like, I think you might be the second highest appearance maker this year on FNtasia.
Potentially, and I started in February.
Yeah, you genuinely at this point, someone's got to go back and count the apps. I think Teddy's been here the second most.
I think this might be my 10th appearance.
10th anniversary for Teddy. Congrats. Congrats. It's funny though, because we get a lot of comments like, "Oh mate, make sure Teddy's back." And it's like he's been here every week this year. Like it's like he's not just gonna go. Like,
no one asking for Boob, no one asking for Coach.
No one cares about those guys, you know. Well, look, actually, we do care about Coach. Be sure to wish Harry a happy birthday. Harry's not here today because it is his birthday. So wish him a happy birthday in the comments. Boop and Reese, I don't know what's going on. Everywhere, nobody's locked in this season. That's what I figured out, guys.
They're at Harry's birthday party, actually. That's what.
And I wasn't invited. Yeah,
you weren't invited.
Apparently, I've been too mean to
how old does Harry turn again? Can you just?
Harry is turning the grand old age of 25.
Damn.
The big 25.
The big two. That's a bit closer to 30 than he is to 20. You know, that's when it really starts to sit in. I think we have a lot of over 25 viewers, to be fair, so I don't want to offend anybody.
Potentially there's some other over 25 people here right now, potentially.
Yeah,
you may inadvertently be offending. Should we pitch in and get him a Nimbus 2000?
What?
That was a Harry Potter joke.
I feel like I'm too young to know what a Nimbus 2000 is.
That's what they get. That's the broom that they get Harry Potter.
I'm exposing myself as a non-Harry Potter fan. I've watched Harry Potter, but I've not. It's funny because I feel the same about this season of like Star Wars. You know, like I'm like playing like ranked with Destiny Jesus, and he knows everything about Star Wars, and I'm like,
you're a big Star Wars guy.
I guess so. Yeah, he's got like the visual dictionary of Star Wars. He's been bragging about nonstop. So
he's a ginger too, right?
No, DJ's not ginger. I think DJ's like blonde.
Yeah,
like, I don't know what DJ's going on. All right, so what's the plan for this episode? You're wondering if you've made it 3 minutes in. We're gonna do a Q&A. We got some questions from the community. We're gonna answer some of your questions. We will talk a bit about this season though to start off with, just because it has been a bit of a weird season. I'd love to know in the comments, like, how locked in have you, as the viewer listening to this right now, how locked in have you been to the season? I did a viewing party of the FNtasia Showdown last week. I'll probably do one again this week. Actually, I won't, because Manchester United are playing the Europa League final tomorrow, so I will not be watching the finals.
Emotional roller coaster there, 11.
Yeah, sorry, no, my bad. I actually will not. But I did do it last week, and we watched the Showdown, and we watched the opens of the Showdown, which there wasn't much to watch because there was no ELO, and then they've now fixed that, so there will be ELO today as we record this on a Tuesday. And then we watched the finals. I watched it with Reese and DJ, and it was a lot of fun. It was actually a good time. But it's definitely a weird season because we have a bunch of teams that aren't the teams, and some of the other teams. So in EU, I'll speak about EU first, right? In EU, we have a lot of teams who are like quad for globals and stuff, and they're just like not playing with each other. They're all just in random trios.
Little break.
And then the teams who are still yet to qual for globals, who are together, have just been doing mid. And then actually yesterday night we had like a bit of a snake lane happening because we have a couple new big teams in EU who are now going to be contended. So it's definitely a bit of a head case of the season. I'm sure there'll be some questions around some of what's happened over the past 24 hours. So we'll get there. But have you guys been locked in this season? What's been your vibes this season?
Well, let me ask you this, Levin. Have you enjoyed showing up for the showdown?
No, and I'm gonna ask you again. What have you guys been thinking about this? Have you guys been locked in? Have you guys been, invested much into the season?
I feel like the most I've watched is just Veno playing scrims, just anyone who's streaming Noble.
Yeah.
Because these showdowns, they don't move me. These showdowns, these console victory cups, they don't move me.
I didn't even mention the console victory cups. Yeah, that's been. I did not watch a second of console victory cup, so forgive me, console fans.
I'm a Star Wars guy, so I don't mind that and I don't mind when they do these 1 month seasons. Keeps the game fresh, and I think it's good for these players to get somewhat of a break where they can approach the game a little bit more casually, reset, take some pressure off, and then move into the next season. Last seasons, the last 2 seasons, like FNCS happened really fast in Major 2 happened really fast after Major 1. And for instance, I think maybe there was a certain major player retirement that the player maybe just needed a break more than they needed to retire.
Yeah, it sort of feels that way, doesn't it? Yeah, I don't know. I think this season it's weird because I think we talked about it last step of like with how amazing the Pro-Am was, it would be nice if there was something for us to just sort of like ease our way back into competitively. Whereas, I don't know, this season in showdowns, I don't think has been that. It's been fun. I played this season a bit. I played more reload to be fair than I have actual ranked, but yeah, I know that's been a big conversation in the community. I saw like a post recently about player numbers and player counts, and they were like doing comparisons to Roblox, right? And a lot of that conversation was around UEFN, but it became like a general Fortnite conversation of just like in general, when you look at the numbers this season, it's not fantastic by any means. Like it seems like interest in the game isn't at an all-time high, even with some of the fun gimmicky stuff that they put on, right? We had like the Darth Vader AI come in last week. I've actually not played around with it yet, but I saw plenty of clips of Darth Vader in Fortnite saying every slur in the history of humanity. Like he said, like as soon as I saw it, I was like, this is not going to go well. And I saw like a Hypex tweet or something, and Hypex was like, Darth Vader will not swear. And I was like, that's not happening. Like, we trust me, he's going to swear. And lo and behold, within about 6 hours, every slur in human history was said by the Darth Vader AI, which was pretty funny. But I think they've fixed that now, and it's cool. I know it's been controversial in like the whole AI world of like, oh, should they be doing this? But like, yeah, in general, I feel like the interest in this season is just a bit, touch and go. What's happening next year?
I am a big Star Wars guy though, so
okay.
I like seeing the characters in the game, and I have most of the Star Wars skins when they come out, like the Luke Skywalker, the Stormtrooper, Anakin, Vader. Let me ask you this, Levin. Do you see and Clutch too? Are there any trios? Obviously, most of the teams are qualified to globals. If it was trios next year, are there any trios that seem to be vibing and playing well with each other? And
of the qualified like mismatches and stuff?
Yeah, of all the mismatched trios who are kind of fooling around with each other.
Like which team could actually become a team next year?
What's the most real, in your opinion?
I mean,
I think the team of who's the team that Pablo and Chino are playing with. I forgot who their third is. but just that team of like a full Danish trio, that seems like if Fred flirting with the idea of playing with some of like the the Queasies and the Vikas of the world. I could see a world where maybe those guys stick, but that's not maybe the most interesting one you're looking for. Let me look at like who are some of the new trios. I feel like most of them just aren't real.
Yeah, that's what I was gonna say. Like, I feel is it fair to just say none?
Yeah, I think that is. Honestly, I do think that is. Like, I don't think any of them really are. Like, so it's weird because now there's some actual new real trios that are like different, which are interesting. So like, for the people listening, Thomas, Panzer, and Apple aren't playing with each other anymore. Thomas is now going to be playing with Sky and Eyedrop. And that's not just like a trio for this season. Like, that's a real trio that will be playing next season as well, trying to qual for globals. Which I'm very interested to see. But of all the like new season trios of like people who are just playing with each other this season, I'm not moved by any.
Not not doing it for you.
Nah, like so I can see Queasy and Veno playing with each other next year. I genuinely think that's a big possibility. I don't think Fred will be the third right now. I'm not convinced that Fred will be the third, but I definitely could see Queasy and Veno. Like when Veno was on the pod earlier this year when we interviewed him, he was flirting with the idea. He was like, "Yeah, man, I think next year I'd love to play with Queasy." So this one has been them two are definitely cooking something up for next year, I reckon. But
are there any teams that have struggled this year, like Cami Seti and Hari, for instance? Like, are there any teams that haven't made globals yet that have impressed you, staying focused through this time?
Pink.
I get Pink, Hero, Nebs have
he'd be
been
the only one.
Yeah, but even them, it's like it's not like in the showdown finals last week they were contested, so it meant that they had a couple of weird games, which wasn't too bad. Like they still made money and everything, which was good. But yeah, I guess we'll see this week how they do. This week will tell me a bit more, I think, about sort of where they're at. But in general, yeah, I don't know who on NA played. I know Peterbot like didn't play with his team. Like who on NA have been playing with each other? Is there any interesting teams on NA? Ritual, Rapid Threats, Muzz, Shadow Rise. I think that might be an actual new team. Yeah, I don't know, man. I think this season in general, for me, it's a cheeky holiday. I might take my actual holiday. Like some of these players have been on holiday. You know, I might do the same. Just go on holiday for a week.
I do think it's important for there to be breaks built into the competitive calendar.
Right.
But I think it gets pretty light in July because Epic goes on their vacation as well. So and then Globals is pretty early again this year. So if there's a ton of huge competitive breaks, maybe it's a bit of an issue. But I do think these players do need some time to like reset and take a little break.
Yeah, it's interesting. I if they're gonna do that though, I would actually like to see them do an actual break. I don't think they would, but I'd like because like even though you're right, people are taking it less seriously. Like people are still playing, you know, people are still grinding every day. Like you got like the Venos of the world who are just still playing like 10 hours every day because there's like money on the line. Like I'd like to see Epic, even if it's not long. I don't know the implications on like player counts and like keeping demand in the game or whatever. But like I would like to just see them give at least like a 1 or 2 week break where there's like no actual big significant tournaments that people know about in advance, so you can plan an actual holiday as well, not just like last minute out of nowhere. Like we go into the year and everybody knows like, hey, those 2 weeks there's not going to be any cash prize tournaments. There'll still be skin cups so people can jump on the game and play and whatever, but like take a break in these 2 weeks and get ready for the rest of the year. I think that'd be nice.
I feel like they only do that break ever in like December when they also have their winter break.
Right.
They're kind of like it's kind of routine for them to do that break, but I think it's not enough.
I think something mid-year. Yeah, something mid-year. Maybe like in future, like after Pro-Am, or maybe even just doing it like right after Globals. I guess it's not like mid-year, but like you get like another one just after the Globals, so people are just like a bit off of it. I don't know.
Let me ask you guys this. Going into the back half of the year, which players have the most pressure on them, or which trios?
Any team not called for Globals. Just all the teams not close for globals. It's like that's where the pressure really is. I think next season will be a lot of fun because there are still so many good players who just aren't qualified for globals. But yeah, it's really just the teams not qualified for globals who have got to start to panic.
Are there any teams already qualified for globals who you think maybe there's a bit of pressure on them, like Queasy's trio, for instance, kind of overwhelming favorites? Queasy's somewhat in the GOAT conversation of EU. Is there a little pressure on Queasy to get something?
I think there's more pressure than there was before.
Yeah, I wouldn't
like
say
the pressure
so.
that comes with being who they are.
It was a tough season, right? Because obviously it was the favorites going into this season. It didn't quite go well. So like I'm sure they'll want to sort of bounce back there. But I wouldn't say there's any extra pressure. I think we still need to see sort of what the global season looks like meta-wise and like who's going to be landing where before we can really have that conversation. Let's get into some of the questions from the community though. We got some questions from you guys we're going to jump into. So first one here, we got Daniel the Uncudio who asked, how do we feel about the Darth Vader AI in both casual and comp? Also, I swear it now has earnings, right?
Yeah,
because the people using the console cup.
It was you got the last hit, or not the last hit. You got the second to last hit on Malabuka in the console victory cup.
That's unreal.
Malabuka was trying to pop a Metka, and Darth Vader just comes from Storm, jumps on his duo, and sends his lightsaber through his box and just stops it.
That's amazing. That is amazing.
I find your lack of faith disturbing.
Wow. Bloody, we got James L. Jones on the bloody podcast, man. Yeah. Jeez. I mean, I'm just like, it's cool. I guess I've not seen too much with it because I've not been watching much the past couple of days. Like I've not seen too much of scrims or anything, but I personally don't mind it. Like I know there's the controversy around it, around like using AI stuff, and like there's like a lawsuit pending or something from like SAG-AFTRA or whatever. But I think like James, from what I've seen online, and this is I've not done much research in this, but from what I've seen online, it appears a lot of people are saying that James Earl Jones, like before he passed, he was like okay with like allowing his voice to be used beyond his life. So I guess like I don't see why there's such a big fuss about it. If he was seemingly okay with it. I get the concern around AI and AI replacing people and being cautious about how we use it and whatnot, but like in this specific case, it's a cool thing, I think.
He probably wasn't okay with the slurs though.
No, he would not have been okay with all the slurs he was saying. Yeah, definitely not. But hey, that's the internet for you. Okay, we got another question from Vibin Random who said, I think Veno, Vico, Flixie splitting is just a play to disrupt other trios by making everyone beef and split up. Secretly, Vico and Veno have got perfect vibes. What do we think?
Vibin Random is a big fan of the pod. So shout out.
He is.
That would be. I usually don't think there's like that much 3D chess going on, but
yeah,
that would be cool if it were true.
The more time you spend in the Fortnite community, the more you realize these people don't have they either don't care enough or they don't have the mental capacities to be pulling this 3D chess.
Do you think Veno would say that he's pulling 3D chess? Like if
he
wouldn't
say that he's pulling 3D chess, but I also feel like he just wouldn't be pulling this 3D chess.
Yeah, I think what you said there's spot on, Clutch. The longer you spend in the Fortnite community, the more you realize that there is nothing like that taking place. Their vibes definitely aren't perfect, and that, if anything, that would be a team maybe that you're worried about sort of moving forward. Of like, what does that team look like going into globals? I think their stocks have just been gradually depleting more and more and more. Obviously, like the initial thing was like between Veno and Vico, but even like again, I don't want to cause any drama, but like even the fact that Veno and Flixie this season stopped playing with each other, right? Because they were playing with each other with Shark, and then now Veno decided he wants to play with other people as well. So yeah, I would be looking at that team and sort of having a couple questions about what the future looks like.
Who do you think from EU is the best chance to win globals, to take globals back from NA? Because that's like the biggest narrative right now. Can EU get it done on the biggest stage?
I mean, you'd
I-
have
I
to
think-
just put your faith back in like Queasy and hope they sort of pick things up. Obviously, Vanya's trios looked really great, like Vanya, Marius, Pixie, but I think it'd still be a leap to sort of expect them to go into globals and just win. I think the right meta and uncontested, they definitely have to, like, they deserve to be in that conversation just because of how they've played this year. But I think just looking at it on paper and looking at how the year's gone for most teams, you are just putting your hope in Queasy, Swizzy, and Mustache.
Yeah, I think Thomas has the best chance. Yeah, I think Thomas
Yeah.
Idrop and
Thomas,
yeah.
Thomas Idrop and Sky. I mean, on paper, Thomas and Idrop playing with each other is just, you're not cooking up an FNCS winning trio.
Yeah.
They're both amazing players, but like when you're looking
Or maybe
at, like,
maybe it's the opposite.
history,
Maybe it's like a math type thing, like 2 negatives make a positive.
Negatives make a positive.
oh wait,
that's
you're
what it is.
cooking. You're right. It's like having the same side of a magnet, you know? It's like they're gonna
Yeah.
push each other towards the win. Wow.
I'm imagining Clutch
Yeah.
just seeing equations in the walls right now, like all the angles perfectly,
Wow.
the rate of the air
I'm
movement.
just seeing Danish flags. That's all I'm seeing. I'm seeing 2
Okay.
Danish flags and a Norwegian flag. I've seen enough. I'm moved. I'm on
Well,
the
do you
train.
think? Do you think because Denmark finally broke the curse, it's like the floodgates are open now, and it's just going to be the era of Denmark on
Yeah,
EA?
Thomas was bound to, like, after Denmark breaks the curse, and it wasn't him. He's bound to be the second person to win an FNCS from Denmark. Like
Why have I not seen this? You're right.
The script is just it's
Yeah.
too obvious at this point.
He, like, because even in winning, he would be second, which is why
Yeah.
it's just so perfect. Wow. Oh yeah, I'm on the bandwagon. Thomas has got to win an
Yeah.
FNCS soon.
Get on
It's
the
happening.
train. Get on the
It's
train.
happening. It's happening. It started right here on this episode of the pod. Wow. Okay. We have Teeny Fan who says, do you feel the almost sort of randomness and choppiness of trios this season will have any serious effect on trios next season? If so, any certain trios?
Is he talking about the game mode generally or specific trios?
I think he's talking about specific trios. So sort of similar to what we were talking about there. Like, I think Veno, Vico, Flixie will be one that you'd think it. Like, I don't know, because obviously we don't know the ins and outs of the trios vibes for like sure, right? Obviously we have ideas of what's been going on just for like the public stuff that's happened, but like I wonder if the time apart will help put them in a better spot for Major 3, or will actually hurt and just make things worse over time. I personally am inclined to say it's probably going to just make things worse. But I'd love to know what you guys think.
I generally think taking a break from, the people that you work with, your teammates probably helps.
Yeah.
It puts you in a better mind state. Because if you play with new teammates and you have similar annoyances with them or whatever the underlying issue is, you're just like, okay, well, the grass isn't greener necessarily. And I think if we're talking about Vino, Vico, and Flixie specifically, I think they know that they're a championship team. They had some kind of weird circumstances in Major 2 that made them underperform, that were slightly out of their control. So I'm pretty optimistic that they'll come back strong in Major 3 and Globals.
Yeah, I think they'll come back strong too. But what you were saying about, you'll play with other people and see that the grass isn't greener. What if they are seeing that the grass is greener? Because like I feel like I open Twitter and every time I see something from that trio, it's just like a Veno clip from a stream where he's like, "Oh yeah, no, I think Vico has this, and this to work on. I think he's not good at surge. He's not good at
Yeah.
tarping."
Yeah.
It's like, yo, Veno, who's better, Vico or random other player? Yeah, I think other players better than Vico at most things. It's like,
yeah, I think, yeah, I'm not gonna say I'm just worried about this team, but I don't think this break is good for the team.
I think I have the feeling that they will just come back better and like all this will just be brushed away. But they are the one team out of all the teams that are taking a break that I feel like you just can't help but be worried for.
Yeah.
I guess if they struggled, if they struggled after reuniting, you'd get a little concerned.
For sure.
But this is an opportunity. Venno told us in the interview that he, leadership and being able to lead a team through the ups and downs of a year, of a season, is important to him. So this is an opportunity for him to build that.
Okay. We have Leo, who says Peterbot is going to be primed next season. He had to be burned out, took a step back this season, and is going to be a demon for the last major. He is going to do things to the lobby we can't even comprehend. Well, this wasn't a question, but it was a take, which we'll accept. We'll accept takes today. It's interesting because it's funny because, this would have been the time to take a break, right? And it has been a bit of a step back for P. I know he literally just won FNCS and won Pro-Am, and we're here talking about, he's taking a step back, right? He's still winning everything. But he has been playing the game a lot less than what he was doing last year when he was on his insane run. And I can't remember what pro it is, but I think it's like Sprite or someone has been like tracking it on Twitter. There was like 3 days where Peterbot wasn't on the game. Like every day it was like,
it's not the Sprite you think it is, a different Sprite, but
it's a different Sprite. Yeah, it's someone else. And like every day they were just like, Peterbot hasn't been on the game for 24 hours. He's been offline. He's not been on the game for 48 hours. He's not been in the game for 72 hours. And I know we all talked about this last year when we were like, eventually he's can't grind the game as much as he has been. Like eventually he's going to take his foot off the gas a bit. And if this season taking his foot off the gas is enough for him to get back to those levels next season and then just beyond, one, it just goes to show he is just a superhuman beyond belief. Because what usually happens now, and when you look at Fortnite history with players who have been amazing and reached the peak and reached the top, what usually happens now is he might put his foot back on the gas, but he won't ever get back to that, right? Like you don't usually ever get back to that level. He'll still just be the best player in the world, I reckon, right? He'll still be really good, but the FNCSs in NA will start to look a lot closer, right? Maybe Globals isn't the same sort of domination we saw last year. Maybe it's a bit more. But if he's able to just get back into it after the season and just be at that level again, that would be a very, very scary prospect.
I'd say he's the prohibitive favorite to win Major 3 on NA, though. I think you'd have to. I don't know, Clicks, Higgs, and Yamso if Major 2 is their peak and they're going to step back similar to what Acorn, Agers, and Poyo did. Acorn, Agers, and Poyo obviously have a lot of improvement that needs to happen for them to be competing for championships again. And then there's a bunch of these other trios who we just haven't fully seen it from. Kanata's trios, Rise, etc. So he does seem like he's the prohibitive favorite.
Well, yeah, that's not. I don't think that's what's being questioned here, right? Like he's still, again, like he's still the best player in the world. I think he's still, like, even if he's not been grinding as much, like he's still the best player in the world. He's still going to be the favorite. I think the difference is how he dominates, right? Like he can be the favorite and not dominate. The question right?
Is he gonna win by game 10 or
right? Like when you look at what they did last season, like Grim season and like some of the other seasons, like they were the favorite and they wiped the floor with the lobby and it wasn't close, right? Whereas like last season he was the favorite and he won, but it was close, right? And so I think what's being argued here is that like he's taking his foot off the gas and next season's going to come back and he's going to go back to just, it's not even close. Which is, I think it will be interesting to see if that happens. I don't know if that will happen. I'm not so sold that that's what's going to happen. I think it's going to go, I think it's going to be a lot more like how last season was, where he's still going to be the favorite, but there's going to be people who
go down.
Hopefully. Yeah. I think that's how it moves. But
can I ask a question? So there's like this kind of constant story of a player gets to the top of the Fortnite world, wins a few FNCSs, maybe grinds less.
Yeah.
Right? They get the GOAT title or they get around the GOAT title and then they grind less. And it usually takes about a year and a half, sometimes even 2 years for that to really start biting them, where they basically overnight kind of seem to lose their contending spot. So how long do we think Peterbot's reign is? If he's kind of in the new phase of his career where, yeah, he's going to play hard, he's going to play to win every time, he's still going to practice, but he's not going to be like the number one grinder in the world, in addition to probably the most talented player. Like, how long do we think his reign lasts?
Okay, I'm gonna flip that one. Full glaze. How long do you think until he retires?
I don't think he's retiring anytime soon.
Yeah,
Yeah.
but like,
think
just
he's-
get like a ballpark number. Like how many years?
5 years.
Okay,
Yeah.
then my answer is 5 years.
As long as competitive goes.
Yeah.
As long as he is still
Until they
playing.
pull the plug.
Yeah.
I like that.
It's basically like, are the servers going to get shut off before?
Like I tried so hard. I remember, because I obviously I wasn't denying back then that he was good, but I tried so hard to like cope and like prey on this guy's downfall. No, you just can't.
Mm,
You can't not believe in Pete.
I know he's
Yeah.
really clutch too.
Yeah.
very, very clutch. See what you did there. I think, I don't know to what extent, because every player is different. So like Cold hasn't grinded the game for like 2-3 years or 2.5 years, maybe. Let's say 2. And he's still just like been one of the best players, like a top
Grinding
3
this
player in the
season, though.
region, right? A bit more.
He's reinvigorated by courage, JD.
Yeah.
The love of the game is back.
And maybe Peterbot can be that type of player. Like maybe Pete is just like, he can just stop grinding completely and still be like a Cold, where he is just still just the best player in the world. And I think that will be interesting to see, like what is his just normal level. Because you have to remember, even before the domination of last year, he was an FNCS champ, right? He was a top player in the region.
Yeah.
And so I think in terms of the reign, let's say the reign of terror. In terms of the reign of terror, I think you could make the argument the reign of terror has ended, in that, like, last season they didn't just wipe the floor. They won, but they didn't just wipe the floor. I would guess that like after this year, it maybe mellows out a bit. I'm holding out hope that in NA we'll see some new talent rise and some team switch ups that make things closer. I'd like to hope that like next year he's not just able to stack up the chips and make a team that is just so disgustingly unfair that he will just dominate everything. But I think Peterbot is just gonna still be the best player in the world for quite some time, I'd reckon.
It's it's also game mode dependent. I think if it's duos again, and he plays with Poyo again, or he plays with someone who he fits really well with, and he can really impose his will a bit
Plays
more
Ballsy
easily
again.
compared to trios, then maybe it does pop off. I think it's super game mode. Like, I think trios, there's just more ways to win, and there's more ways to fail and more ways to lose. So hopefully, to keep it close, Epic keeps trios.
Yeah. No, that's. I think that would be good as well. I think it would help. And just to clarify, I'm not saying I think he's not, like, the reign I don't think is ended, right? Like, I think he is still just going to be. I wouldn't be surprised if they win next 7 years. I wouldn't be surprised if he wins globals. I wouldn't be surprised if going into next year he's still just a favorite every season.
Yeah.
But I just think it's going to start to be closer now.
I think,
amongst
yeah,
the
maybe what
teams.
you're saying is, in the world, he's been in his own tier. Like, there's literally been
Right.
no one in his tier.
Right.
Going forward, he may be number 1 on the S tier of players.
Exactly. Yeah. I think that's sort of the direction we're moving in.
Yeah.
If he isn't gonna be grinding back again and like on it fully.
Is he the GOAT now,
as he has been?
in your opinion?
Oh,
I mean, to me, he's the GOAT. Yeah, I've been saying it all year that I think he's the GOAT. I know some people disagree and some people, have their thoughts about it, but you know, to me, he is the GOAT. I don't want to go into a GOAT debate this app because you know we can do a whole pod on a GOAT debate, but
just asking.
Yeah, I think
on the
he
go
is.
debate.
I'm glad Harry's not here actually, because he would have taken great offense to that question, Teddy. So you're lucky.
Just running around on his Nimbus 2000. There was another question about Peterbot. Do you want to hit that one quickly? I saw it in the comments.
Which one was that?
Would Peterbot win? Like, would Peterbot be the best solo player if it was a year of solo FNCS? It was something along those lines.
I mean,
well, okay, so that was funny because there was another one similar to that. Maybe it was the one that you're thinking of, but somebody asked, would Peterbot have won Duo World Cup as a solo?
hell yeah.
Goes back in time.
Yeah, like if you just teleport him back to 2019 World Cup, does he win do a World Cup as a solo? And I genuinely think yes.
Hell yeah.
You don't think Mongrel and Mitro take him out?
They didn't even win World Cup, so no.
Yeah.
They didn't even win World Cup.
Bro,
So I'd have to say
all
no.
due respect, of course, but like, just picture Peterbot 1v2 against Rojo and Wolfies. All due respect to the player, but just try imagining that for a second.
Yeah, and like
2019 Rojo and Wolfies against Peterbot,
right?
And then you just realize, yeah, it's just
like we always talk about like the strats, right? And like, you know, taking like the average comp player now. I remember when we had that debate about solo World Cup. It was like taking the average comp player now and teleporting them to solo World Cup, and just the pure knowledge that you have about the game now gives you such an advantage. You know, like people didn't know what dead side was. Like it didn't exist. You know, we in that episode we literally took a screenshot of what the map looked like, and it's like you could just like the knowledge that Peterbot has of the game alone is just such an advantage. Then the fact that he is the most skilled Fortnite player of all time against 2019 players. Or sure, they're competitive players, top pros. Yeah, man, he's winning.
This is the plot of the movie Terminator. Peterbot's a machine. He goes back in time.
I'd love to see that.
You ever seen that movie, Terminator?
I've never watched Terminator, no. I've never watched it. I know it's a classic, but never watched it.
Terminator 2 might be better. I think Terminator 1 is probably still the best, but Terminator 2 is pretty good as well.
Yeah. A lot of people asking about Pete. When will Pete's prime end? All right. We have some more questions.
Here's one last Peter question, and then we can who do you think is the player most likely, and maybe that player doesn't exist yet, but who are some candidates to surpass Pete as the undisputed best player in the world in a given time, given era, in a future era of the game? Is that player even playing right now?
I was about to say some glazed shit. I was gonna say Peterbot's son. Candidate.
What do you think, Clutch? Because I have an answer for this.
Active right now? Because I think the answer is the player maybe just hasn't showed up yet. But
there's like a prophesized hero.
Yeah.
So you said, is that player even playing right now? Yes, that player is playing right now. Is that player on our radar at all? I'm gonna say no. I don't think there is. I don't think of the current crop of like top NA players, there's anyone that's like ready to do that.
Yeah, I don't think there's anyone in NA.
There's no one ready to do that in NA. Absolutely, there's some top players who I think are gonna be the new stars of this next sort of couple of years of NA, but nobody else ready to do that on Peterbot's level. In EU, there's nobody either. Don't let people tell you that it's Shark and it's just the EU people. Just trust me, there's nobody in EU ready to do that either. I don't think. Yeah, I don't think that player is a known quantity to us yet. Or they might be a known quantity, but just not on that.
Actually,
spectrum. That's all.
I got my answer.
What's your answer?
I think, and the proof is in the pudding as well. At Pro Am, the 1v1 was 5-1 or 6-1. I think the player to take down Peter was the Asian Peterbot. I think one day Coyote will get tired of being the best player in Asia, and he'll just move to EU. He'll play with some top trio. Will take him up, and Peterbot's reign will come to an end.
Well, that would surge the popularity of Fortnite competitive again because it just would basically activate an entirely new region to the level of
bro,
interest of NA and EU.
I've been waiting for an FNCS LAN in Japan. Like the Japanese community, it's gotten smaller, but they are passionate.
They are.
Super passionate.
They are. Unfortunately, though, that wouldn't reignite Asia as a region if he's moving. Like
Yeah.
their fans would be, but you know, like we've seen it before with like other people moving. Like it wouldn't really ignite the region. It just their fans would be passionate. The region would still be a dud, unfortunately. But so I can't find the question. But somebody did have a question, and sorry that I'm not able to find it and remember your name. But oh no, I think I just found it. Okay, so they said Mark Lynn said with Aussie Antics technically making history in Pro-Am fresh in mind. What do you guys reckon it would take for smaller regions to gain competitive parity with the big regions? Is it even feasible in any way? And that sort of like links to this of just like, yeah, like can a Toyota, can someone from other regions like carry the region up to that level? And the answer is just no. We've had this conversation on the pod many a time. With the way competitive Fortnite currently works in terms of just like how like the meta of the game and how a game plays out, the smaller regions, the lack of top players in the smaller regions just by sheer numbers means that they will never get good enough practice. Like they can't ever consistently practice at their level. I know we meme practice here in EU and NA sometimes, but like here in EU and NA, like, you can practice Surge and it will be similar to how it's going to be at a globals, for example, right? Whereas like if you're a Middle East player, you can never practice Surge in any way that's going to be accurate to what it's going to be like on a global stage. It's literally impossible. Like, you can't.
The gap is gonna grow, right? In economics, this is a concept called the Matthew effect. In other words, it's iron sharpens iron, or the rich get richer.
Yeah.
And it compounds. Like they'll compound apart. And that's why you see year over year, like the smaller regions doing worse and worse at land. And in fact, the best performing small region team had an NA player on it.
Yeah,
you can take with that what you will. But there was an NA player on that team. So yeah, I do think I would love to see a small region pop off, and like maybe Kyoto is like the chosen one, and there'll be a huge surge of interest in Asia, and it'll eventually catch up in a few years. But yeah, typically what happens is the gap separates because the bar on EU and NA is constantly raising. So all the top players have to raise to that bar, and then once they hit another plateau, someone else will push the bar up, right? Queasy for ITLing, Venno for kind of like a balanced, smart, and skilled gameplay. Raz will pop in and he'll come up with, a Thanos strategy for Peterbot, and we'll keep eking up. Like, think about how much better Clicks is getting,
right,
by virtue of like grinding year after year on NA. And he's obviously a really talented player, but he's clearly committed to practice, right? We're talking about practice right now.
We're talking about practice. We're talking about practice. We talk about practice. I think what's really interesting as well, Teddy, is the fact that like I think there's a possibility for like one-off great performances depending on the meta. So like, let's say Asia had another Toyota, because this is the thing I always talk about to people, and I had this conversation on my stream last week. The talent in the smaller regions is there. Like, there's players on OCE, Asia, Middle East who are as talented as the top talent in EU and NA. But again, because there's that lack of the iron sharpening iron, those guys just can't compete at LAN. But let's say we had a meta that was like a Chapter 5 Season 1 meta, maybe, where it's just much more reliant on fighting for getting your surge. If that was the globals meta, and you had like 2 Coyotes in Asia, and they just rock up to LAN, and they're like, we are just gonna fight. We are amazing. That we are as good as Coyotes at fighting, and our game plan is just to fight, and that is the meta to succeed, like it was in Chapter 5 Season 1. Then maybe you could get like a really good performance, right, from one of those smaller region teams on the LAN. But then that'd be it, because as it does in Fortnite, that doesn't stay, right? Like the meta changes and it changes, and you just don't even know what you're gonna get for global. The fact that we don't even know what them globals meta could be, the globals meta might be what I'm talking about. It might actually be that, right? But like we just don't even know, and you can't really prep for that. So
do we think there's just a group that trios or duos helps? I think it goes both ways, which is in trios you can play like a really solid team game and you can overperform, but in the same way that trios maybe dilutes, Peterbot's solo excellence. You could just also see that trios is harder to be good at, so it's going to be like way more NA and EU at the top of the leaderboard because it's like
I don't think there will be like any top performances from minor regions and trios. I'm just gonna go out there and say that I think it's what you said. Like trios, and what everyone knows, like trios dilutes solo performances. It's like harder to solo carry in a trio, and the talent in those minor regions is so scarce. Like there is only one Coyote. There are other top players in Asia, but there's only one Coyote.
right.
There is only one Gon, even though Gon hasn't even won an FNCS in Brazil ever. So
Right.
there's only one King, right? Stuff like that. I think duos, we did see top performances from minor region teams and duos. It's like almost like the thing everyone says. Like there's always like you can always count on one Asia or one Brazil team to just get a top 5 at globals in duos.
Yeah.
But
so then Clutch and Levin over under. We'll do a little over under 14th for the best, or no, I should say because it's trios, over under 10th for the best non-NAEU placement.
Over 10th. I mean, like bigger than 10th. It's like not top 10.
Yeah, so 11th onwards. And you think under 11? Like you?
Oh, sorry, I meant over. Yeah, over. Like there's not going to be anyone in the top 10. I reckon.
How many teams is EU sending again? We got
7, right?
2 from major,
one, then
5 from major 2,
this one,
and then
3 from the other one. Yeah, we're sending 10 teams, 10 EU teams plus the NA teams. There's
7 or 8 from NA. 7.
There's no chance to get a top 10.
Yeah, getting a top 10 is crazy.
The one, if you count West, I could see backup Pars and Pump being okay because back and Pars did well.
Well, they kind of don't count.
I know it's like
but
that would be like the only one that I could see that people could be like, oh, it's a small region. And then,
right. Yeah, no, people would definitely play that card, but like, yeah, and I don't think of backup Pars as an AOS team. Obviously they are, but like they played on Central and were amazing on Central, so it's like. Yeah, but I get it. If you do.
The best chance of the minor region getting top 10 in globals is Muzz coming top 10. That's the best chance they got.
Yeah, there you go. Actually, no. When Peterbot wins, it's a dub for EU and Hungary.
Dub for Hungary.
Yeah.
Peterbot, pride of Hungary. We're on that train.
All right, we got a couple more questions. Let's see. We have Spudzan, who said, do you think Thomas, Sky, and iDrop is a guaranteed Lancor? I'm really struggling to see a situation where that trio doesn't make globals. Yeah, no, absolutely. I think when you look at the top teams, it's funny because I thought this would maybe happen on NA, and it might still happen on NA. But when you're looking at the teams that were left in EU who need to qual, there was always a possibility that like a super team forms out of those like top teams who still needed to. And I don't necessarily think this is a super team. I'm not going to go that far. But I do think that this is like a good combination of like the teams. I think when you're looking at how this team plays, like Sky, Scroll, iDrop, obviously Sky's IGLing and sharing some of that responsibility with iDrop, and iDrop's playing as support, and we know iDrop's done that really well throughout his career. And so like Scroll's kind of the person who just sort of had to like sit there and just like exist, but do really good. And like, when I've spoken to Harry, the way Harry puts it is like, that's literally Thomas's bread and butter. Like, that's his thing. I'm going to exist, and I'm going to exist really well and get a bunch of damage and help the team. So I think this team should be a lock, or I would have them as a lock to take one of the global spots next season.
they've kept all their dynamics and they've just upgraded the player. It's like you go. I know you were talking about Harry. I know he has some choice words for Scroll in certain aspects of his game. Not his aim though, of course. But you've picked up Scroll. You've given him better mechanics and better aim, and just a better sense of the game in general.
Yeah, so, it's an upgrade.
Who else?
It's tough as well because Scroll this season's actually like changed his binds, which I think is part of why he got dropped.
That's what I thought. I think what happened here is Scroll changed his binds, and I just said, nah.
We're not sticking with you through this tough time.
If you're gonna be a regular player, then we'll just get the regular player.
Right. The best regular player there is, you know.
So on NA we have 2 spots on Central for basically
teams.
3 teams.
Yeah.
On EU it's 3 spots, correct? In this major.
Yeah, there's 3 spots, I think.
And who are the other teams that are going to be fighting for it? Right, it's probably Cammy and Seti.
I mean, the 3 big ones. It's Cammy, Seti, Chari, Thomas, iDrop, and Sky, and
Pink.
I guess Pink is the 3rd.
Yeah. Well, we had 4, right? Because it was
4.
Thomas, Panzer, Apple, iDrop, Sky, Scroll, Cammy, Seti, and then Pink's trio. I think a lot of people would say, and there might be someone else I'm forgetting. Forgive me if there is.
Chap?
Chap, Teeny.
The remains of Chap, Teeny, and
whoever. So like there was still quite a lot, but now you've kind of almost eradicated one. I don't know who Panzer and Apple are going to play with, right? But you've almost taken the team away because Scroll is kind of now left in the dust a bit. I'm not sure if he said who he's going to be playing with. Like this team forming like almost eradicated like 2 teams out of the equation, you know.
Yeah.
So
it's actually we forgot a team in the equation. We gotta get the clips, get the thumbnail. We forgot Savage. Savage is in the conversation. Savage and Reason.
Shark still hasn't made it, right? Trulex.
Well, Shark doesn't have a team.
But we've never seen a LAN without Trulex, have we?
No, we haven't. Trulex is one of the best LAN performers in Fortnite history. So it's going to be a fun season.
I honestly think, as a big Trulex fan, I think it's better if he sits this one out because his chances of keeping that streak of good LAN placements going aren't that high.
Options, yeah.
I'd rather the average placement at LAN stay high. You can just sit this one out. We just forget this.
That's like the Tayson argument, right? Which is like if you keep playing but your performances are a bit worse than your prime, then your current performances get compared to your prime.
Exactly.
And
it works more like that's why Miro's still so favored, right? When in GOAT debates, it's like he's not even playing. Like, if he was playing, he'd probably just be like missing out. Like you know what I mean? Like he'd be like dudding in grinds, right? But it's like he's not playing, so look at the records.
I try to resist the temptation of punishing players for keeping trying after their prime.
Yeah, again, that's one of those things in like the GOAT debate that we definitely have to touch on at some point soon in the future. All right, what other questions we have here? We got a couple more. A couple here that we've answered already. All right, I'll ask. This is a bit more of a lighthearted question, but I want to know from both of you: do you have favorite players that you root for? Says Nova 2K25.
I mean, I have a Seti jersey in my closet, so
you are keeping the Seti fan club alive.
It's funny that I'm like in the same friend group as Harry, but he's #1 Seti hater, and I just sit there listening to him just talk all this shit about Seti, hate on Seti so much, and I'm just sitting there with my Seti jersey in the closet. It's just like just holding back tears. It's been hard. It's been hard.
A tough time to be a Seti.
It's been a tough time to be a Seti fan. I see the fucking. I watch Grands. I open Twitter. I see Hours of Cells tweeting him shitting out his own ramp.
Oh,
it's like,
man, it's tough.
It's been tough times, but I'm keeping it going.
What about you, Teddy? Who's the team or the player that you really root for?
Well, in general, in general, I like to root for Kanata.
Okay.
He stands out, so that's like a bit of
Actually, yeah, I root for Canada, for Acorn, for Cooper. That's who
Oh
I
yeah,
root
look
for.
at it. Look at the
that's a
That's
bit
who
of
I
a,
root for the
paycheck coming
most.
through now.
a
Look at
clutch.
this, bro.
Paycheck just hit actually, bro. I got the Dick jersey on, Dick chain. Like
Wow.
I'm always
what I'm
invested
rooting
in
for.
Thomas on EU. Like I
Okay.
really,
Okay.
really, really want Thomas to win.
Okay.
I like a lot of comebacks. Like I like the comeback stories. So like Day on NA is like maybe one of the comebacks that, unfortunately it's just not going amazing. Mongrel, I always like root for Mongrel's comeback. Noah Riley.
Are you doing a thing here?
No?
Okay, just because I was trying to make some connections between your answers, and you started off with Canada, and you're Canadian, so I was like, okay, maybe he's doing like a thing.
Okay.
Then you said Thomas, and I'm like, his name is Teddy, but is Teddy like short for Is his real name Thomas? And he's
No,
like,
no, I'm answering the question genuinely.
okay, and then
don't
because
even,
then you said you like you said you like comebacks, and I'm like, he is the
Is it
clutch
clutch?
up channel, and I'm like, is
there's
he doing the thing?
there's no puns in the chamber.
Okay,
There's like no joke
okay,
in the
all
chamber.
right.
I
This
didn't
is-
even. I didn't even think about the
I'm
puns.
giving
I
a
thought it was
genuine
a thing where he
answer.
was just naming like. Okay, is it mean to say he's just naming people who almost at their peaks in Chavadu season 4?
Yeah, I actually, to be honest, because yeah, definitely a lot of the chapter 2
Yeah.
storylines, because I make videos of stuff in the past, so I'm always seeing stuff in the past. I was I had an org or ran an org for a little while, so like the players who are in that org I still root for, like Diego Plays and
Nice.
a few other guys like that I want to see, that I just know. So I want to. The Braids was on the team for a while, so like I want to see those guys succeed.
Yeah.
And then there's like historic players. Like I was always like a big Zate fan. I'm a big Queasy fan.
Of course.
Like I like those kind of 200 IQ brain players. Yeah, I like a lot of. To be honest, I'm a bit of like I like a lot of players. I don't really dislike any players. So I gave a huge list, but
No Acorn? You said 200 IQ players. No Acorn?
I like Acorn. Acorn's
Hell
Canadian
yeah.
as well. So
Hell yeah, there it is.
yeah.
Yeah, I like Acorn, I like Yomzo, I like Zay, just anyone that's just got a Canada
Canadian,
flag.
exactly.
No,
I do. Rise and the Yomzo, of
course. How can I forget Rise? Well, Rise is actually Scottish, if people don't know. So
really, no, he's Canadian. Isn't he Canadian and a ginger? And the Yomzo is Canadian and a ginger.
He is Canadian, but he's also Scottish. So I always claim Rise as an
like
EU. Yeah.
My family.
I don't think it's actually. I don't think it's just purely. I think he's like I think someone closely related is like. I think it's like his grandpa or something. I don't know.
The Moss family is Scottish originally.
Okay. So there is
all
something.
The
There's a connection there.
are Scottish.
You're never gonna beat the allegations that you are Rise's dad at this rate, mate. I'll just be honest with you. So it's like, yeah, I'm also a Canadian ginger with Scottish heritage, like
and Irish. My mom's family Irish. Fitzgibbon is my mom's maiden name. So
there you go.
What about you?
Yourself. Me, my favorite player. Who do I root for? The two I always tell people is Pink and Veno. Just because they're my mates and there's a bit of London bias there. Like we actually like hang out and stuff. So I'm always rooting for those guys to do well. On NA, I'm a big fan of Acorn. Big fan of Acorn. I want to see Acorn do well all the time. Big fan of Yomzo. I never really got flamed for it because people just didn't really care when I said it back then. But I remember like a couple years ago, there was a point in like chapter 4, I think it was chapter 4, season 3, where I was like, I think Yomzo is the best player in NA. And most people just sort of brushed it off and was like, well, you're just guys just
in chapter 4, that was definitely an argument.
Yeah, he was unbelievable. So I've been a big fan of him since sort of like late chapter 3 when he was playing with D-Gen. So
I was a big fan of Yomzo chapter 2 season 7, like early on when I thought
he was a bit too squeaky back then for me.
Yeah, he was a bit too squeaky, but I was a big fan of his game. I thought he had the best in-game mechanics out of any pro in NA.
That was like that rookie class. And it was
right when he was coming up. I thought he was insane in game.
Called Peterbot and Yomzo. It was like the 2021 rookie class. Yeah. And then it was Veno, Malibuka, Mustache on EU.
Yeah. So yeah, I'd say those guys on NA, and then on EU, Pink Venom. Queasy's my guy as well. I love Queasy. Got a lot of love for Queasy. That's why I always always have them guys on the channel. You know, it's just like my mate. I just ring out my mates. You know, get them on.
Well, those guys always have interesting things to say.
Yeah, always. You know, people have been asking for us to get a Veno interview again, and to be honest, it wouldn't be a bad time to do it. There's a lot going on with that guy, so maybe we run it back soon. All right, what's another one here? We've got some more. Who are some pros that had their peak at the later age in their career, like 19, 20, around that time? It's interesting because, you know, Fortnite is such a young game, and there was a period in time where like people like, if you are 20, 21, like you're done, like you're washed, like it's over for you, you know? And then now all the best players in the world are like 20, 21, and then, you know, they're still competing. And
remember that resub video where it's like
the look doing latency.
Look doing latency.
Yeah,
What did he said? The look doing latency lasts till like 27, right?
Well, it starts to decline, I think, at 24 is what you said, or 25 maybe. So Coach Harry's finished.
Yeah, my look during latency is not good.
Yeah, yours is in the mud. But like you look at like someone like Clicks, right?
Yeah,
like Clicks almost having like a new prime, and he's like 20, you know. So it's like I don't know when these players are going to start to expire. It's funny because as a fan of other esports, like 20 years old in some games is like you're a baby, you know. Like imagine like. I remember when I first started watching CS, like if a pro was like 20, you're looking at them and you're like, bloody hell, he's got 10, 15 years in his career left. Like,
I mean you can't even use that for CS anymore because of Donk.
Well, yeah, because you got the kids. I feel like the kids are just starting to dominate in every game, you know. But
not in league though. Not in league.
Not in league.
I think you can easily see the average age, especially if some of these more veteran players stick around. It's definitely worthwhile for Clicks to keep playing. Like I don't. There's probably some content alternatives for him that would maybe perform better, but it's no sure thing. Like I think he balances everything pretty well.
Do you think Clicks looks at like Lacey and how Lacey's career's panned out, and like a part of it? Do you think a part of him is like that easily could be me and more?
Maybe, but Clicks has got a lot going for him, and I do think the core gaming as a market and as a brand is likely more durable than
the IRL streamer stuff.
Maybe more of the IRL. Yeah, because there's no barrier. Like Lacey was the #1 fumble of all time of Moonian at my org. Like he DM'd us.
Oh no.
Yeah. Anyways, way back in the day. But yeah, so it's a huge L. But there's no barrier to entry for that kind of streaming. Obviously, you have to be really charismatic and like really entertaining. But I do still think it's really hard to be a top level gamer, like a Shroud level gamer or and a TENS level gamer. And those things do persist over time. Even though TENS is retired from Valorant, people still are like, oh, this guy's absolutely cracked. So they'll still go watch his gameplay. So you like, maybe the ceiling isn't quite as high, but the floor, I would say, is much higher. And it's harder to age out of that, in my opinion.
Yeah. Unlike those guys, though, like Clicks is a weird case because he does have that gaming core, like his old brand. Yeah. But unlike the TENSes and the Shrouds, like there's still a lot of interest in them playing other games. I don't think there's that much interest in Clicks playing other games.
Right, yeah, like if Clicks just booted up his stream and was playing Valorant all day, it might not be the same. But it's funny because on that same comparison, if we're using that same scale, right, I do think that Clicks is much closer. And the reason I even asked is because I do think Clicks is much closer to easily being involved in that IRL stream world than like the likes of like a TENS and Shroud. Like if TENS 100%. Ripped out the IRL cam and started walking about LA, we'd all sort of be looking at him a bit like, mate, what are you doing?
Get on the game.
Yeah, go back inside, broski.
Yeah.
Whereas I think Clicks could boot up his stream and have like similar viewers to Lacey and just be doing that like very easily, I feel like.
Yeah, he keeps a great balance and he has lots of options.
Yeah.
Right? Like really successful. And and there's no indication that that the success will stop anytime soon, right?
For sure.
So like he's got a long road ahead of different things he can do. So he's like really set up well. But right now I do think Fortnite competitive's in a bit of a renaissance in terms of interest, right? Peterbot versus clicks and all these different things. And I do think that him going after the FNCS is like a built-in story every single season,
For
every
sure.
single year.
Yeah.
That
Yeah.
is super powerful. And then he still has lots of time. Like he can go into Super Bowl ads. He has lots of times to do other stuff. I know this was not the question, but I think
No,
Clicks is
it's-
playing it really well. And if I were him, I would keep, maybe I'm biased, I would keep like a pretty, like, 2 feet into esports, and I would, be constantly, experimenting with other stuff.
involved. Yeah.
I mean,
Yeah.
which I feel is what he's doing, like
Yeah.
becoming a part owner of Exa and all that. I feel like
Yeah.
that is the path he's going down.
Yeah, I think he's playing it perfectly, to be honest. Like I would have no notes. Like I think whoever is, he's obviously really smart and sophisticated, and whoever's advising him and working with him and helping him is also like doing a great job. Like I would give those guys high performance reviews.
I like that.
Also, just before we get off this question, I feel like we kind of forgot Queasy is 23 and Thomas is 22. I feel like they're just the obvious answers to that question, actually.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
Trulex,
Yeah.
obviously, as well.
Yeah, Trulux as well.
Thomas not 23 yet?
No, not 23. Yeah.
His birthdays must be coming up soon. 'Cause I know Thomas is like similar. Like he's like me, Queasy, and Thomas all like the same age. So like
Kanata
Thomas
too. Kanata and Agers must
Birthday
be.
is in 10 days.
Yeah, his
He's turning
birthday must
23
be
in 10
soon.
days.
Yeah.
Kanata, Agers, Acorn. Like all these guys are.
Yeah.
Acorn's
21,
Acorn's
22.
younger than Kanada, I think.
How old is Acorn? Is he 20?
I
21?
think he's 20.
Damn, I would have guessed that Acorn's like 22, 21.
Yeah, everyone would think Acorn's 22. That's
Yeah.
like, he's young.
Interesting.
There's lots
Yeah,
of-
no, man. These players are old. They're getting old, and they'll keep getting older and still be good.
Cami and Seti, I think, are probably like. I'm just thinking of everyone.
There's a lot of them. Like there's a lot of them. Like most of like outside of like some of the newer era. I say newer era. Like Peterbot's not necessarily new era, but like, outside of like some of the Pete's and like the Vicos and stuff like that. Like a lot of the tier 1 are 20 plus now. Like a lot of them are.
That's healthy for the game because you're still going to get the cracked younger players, but
yeah,
I think it does broaden the appeal of the game.
for sure.
Shit, fucking Aussie just won a LAN.
Yeah, I mean, and that guy's ancient, you know.
that guy's getting on.
Yeah, wife and kids, and he's winning, FNCSs, mate. Bloody hell, gotta give props to him. All right, somebody said, I say somebody, Yusuf. I'm gonna try to say people's names. Yusuf said, "Is a skill gap between tier 1 and tier 2 the biggest it's ever been, especially on NA?"
Especially on NA, yeah.
Can I ask you a question? In general, like, do we think Peterbot and maybe some of the players like him have hit the skill ceiling of Fortnite?
That's the thing about Fortnite, which is like, I feel like the answer to that question right now is almost in a way, yeah, sure.
Do you think they're at like 97%? Like, what percentage?
Yeah, they're like very, very high, but at the same time, it's like all Epic needs to do is just like add a new movement mechanic or add a new feature, and it's just suddenly the skill ceiling just raises again.
I feel like every year I've been asked this question, and every year the answer is the same, and every year the answer is wrong. So while I'm inclined to say yes, because that's what I've said almost every year I've been wrong. So I'm gonna say probably not. I do think it's slowing down. Like if you look at it like as a curve, I think it's plateauing a bit.
Yeah.
But I don't think it is at a standstill. I think in peak Peterbot, I can't speak English. In peak Peterbot, we've seen the closest thing to perfect at times, right?
Yeah.
And maybe there will be a time in a couple years where like at the tier 1, like his level now is just the level, where like there are just a bunch of mini Peterbots running around. So I'm gonna say no, we've not still seen him, but like I do think it's slowing down. Like Clutch said, I think we're getting closer and closer to hitting that skill ceiling.
Yeah.
But I'd say the gap between tier 1 and tier 2, yeah, it's probably the biggest it's ever been. I'd say.
I have a little joke. I think if Peterbot was German, Peterbot would be like a.
that'd be yeah.
Yeah.
I mean,
Yeah.
I'm sure if he wants to go back to his Hungarian roots, I'm sure he could sell some Peterbots in Hungary, and people would still lap it up, mate. So it's not off the cards.
The other thing about that question, not like spend too long on this, but I think it's also like the nature of competition. Okay, to keep it short, I think the nature of competition is that even if there's a skill, holy, we're all fucking up the English language here. If there's a skill ceiling, like the general populace will never, like the general population of competitive, the tier 1s, there will never be a situation where every tier 1 is close to the skill ceiling.
Exactly.
That's the nature of competition. Like you can look at traditional sports, you can look at other games like CS, like they haven't changed, and we have seen the closest thing to the skill ceiling in those games, but you will never have a situation where all the tier 1s are reaching the skill ceiling.
Just that level,
yeah. And I feel like in the NBA basketball players, I feel like they're getting better. Hockey players are definitely like if you watch hockey from 20 years ago versus today, it's much faster. So yeah, I do think I also think maybe skill ceiling is not 100%. It's like the winning ceiling, which it's like a combination of game knowledge, strategies, being able to get good teammates, having a good reputation in that way, and then mechanics and aim, editing speed, fighting awareness, etc. Like I think it's like a bigger combination of things in Fortnite that you need, that I would say comprises the quote unquote skill ceiling that separates the top players from the next tier.
Yeah, that's why nowadays I think about it more in just like margin for error, because there's always going to be a margin for error. Like there's NBA players don't shoot 100%, right? Like, you're always going to miss. Like CS players at the top level don't hit every single shot, and that's why like in Fortnite, like I think Peterbot has been the closest to perfect in terms of just like almost making no mechanical mistakes. But obviously even then, right, there's things that happen. So yeah, it's
and like in the NBA, they're now hitting harder shots. Like they have to hit hard. Like Steph Curry hits harder shots at a higher volume than possibly imagined. So you can see
it gets just more and more. Yeah, like
exactly. It gets like your margin for error is a perfect way to say that. The margin for error gets tighter and tighter and tighter, and the caliber of play you have to make within that margin of error gets much higher in terms of how either smart it is or how skilled it is.
Yeah, for sure. Final question is, if you could choose one chapter of Fortnite, sorry, I've just completely messed this reading this up wrong. Or Asp10 says, if you could choose one chapter Fortnite had to run on for the next 5 years, which one do you think would have the highest chance of still having a good player base after 5 years with only that chapter? It just has to be chapter 2, no? Just
I was gonna say that.
So many different seasons.
But obviously, it also has to be all our memories of chapter 2 have to be erased. Because if it's just an OG type run back for 5 years, like any run back for 5 years will just
right.
But yeah, it would just be chapter 2.
How would you rank them? Chapter 2, chapter 1, chapter 4?
Definitely not chapter 1. I think chapter 2.
Well, this doesn't specify competitively, just like playing.
Yeah, just like I'm thinking player base only.
Yeah.
I think chapter 2, then the big tier break. I know chapter 3 would be at the bottom. That would be the last one.
But chapter 3 had a good casual player base, right? It was just kind of
I don't think it does.
Lousy for comp.
I think
chapter 3 as a whole, I think the whole interest in the game was low, because like even like casual YouTube content wasn't doing as good back then.
Yeah, fair enough.
So
I think it'd be chapter 2, chapter, as weird as it might say, chapter 5, because I think the blow up of UEFN and the significance of but he's only, I guess he's only talking about the Fortnite Battle Royale itself.
Yeah.
Okay, if we're only talking about BR and not like just the game within the chapter, just BR alone, chapter 2, chapter 4, chapter 1, chapter 5, chapter 6 so far, chapter 3.
Do you think chapter 6 is a pretty hot start though? Both seasons have been pretty good, I would say.
Yeah, but I also think in a way it's not to be negative Nancy over here, but I think it's also slowing down a bit as compared to the pace of the other chapters, the pace they ran at in terms of interest. I think this one is slowing down a little bit around now.
Yeah. And I think just speaking from a BR perspective, because this chapter's had a lot of great things that aren't just BR. Like Reload, I think has been great this year.
Yeah.
Right. But like if I'm just only thinking about BR, like what would I want running for 5 years? I think that's probably the order I'd go for. Even maybe I wouldn't even put chapter 4 second if that was a good. I don't know.
I'm more of
It would
like
be
a
chapter 2
1. I'm more of a chapter 1 nostalgia. I do think like some of the later seasons in chapter 1 were quite fun.
No, for sure.
They were, but I'm a really hard believer that this applies for almost any game, and especially in Fortnite, just any early season, the game is it just wasn't a good game. It had the potential to become a good game, which it did, and like it evolved over time into a better game. But like it just wasn't a good game. So like for me, it would be like chapter 2, chapter 4, chapter 5, chapter 1, chapter 6, and big tier break chapter 3.
It is pretty crazy, like how productive Epic is. I know like people are haters, but sometimes, and it's not always perfect, but it's pretty crazy. Like a company to be that consistently creative and come up with new things, and try new and like bold enough to try new things, even though, you know, if something the audience doesn't like will, you know, lead to a huge social media blow up. It's pretty, I mean, Epic's a pretty impressive company.
Yeah, I think it's hard not to sound like a glazer, like a company glazer, which is the last thing anyone should be. But I do think, like when saying this, but I do think people in general, not just in this game, but in general, people should be more thankful to some game developers.
Yeah.
Like
I'm not contributing to this guy. I get paid by these people, so
yeah, you're the one here that can't. You cannot open your mouth.
I will say this, as like I work in software. It's way harder to build software than people think. That's stable, that has not that many bugs, because there's always going to be some bugs. It's like much harder than everyone thinks. So it's pretty insane the velocity that Epic can go at with the scale of what they do, like across UEFN. Like maybe it's almost too many things at this point. It's pretty crazy. It's pretty crazy to me. Like, and that's not like, I'm obviously not being paid to say that, or like have really no interest in saying that, other than it's really hard what they do. And it's, I think, you know, pretty lucky, pretty fortunate to have such a good game.
Yeah, I can't contribute to that. I'm a jobless student.
Yeah. Shout out to Epic Games, man. Good people, good folk over there at Epic Games. Yeah, this episode has been a bit of a different one, but I will say to the people who have made it this far, when this has happened in the past, this has been the eps where you guys just get no ep in the week. And so I thought, you know what, they deserve better. We're not gonna just give them no ep. We'll just load it up and we'll just talk, you know. We'll talk, we'll answer some questions, we'll vibe. So yeah, appreciate you all for hanging out. Next week we'll get Cooper on for an interview.
Real guests next week.
Oh, you're a real guest. Oh, by the way, now you are just a host now on the show.
Oh,
so.
shit.
Yeah, no. And like now when I call you to come on the pod, like you can't even make the excuse because like you're here, you know, like you've been here now. So
I was gonna say, like you said, this week is like the type of week where you have no app, but you were like, you know what, like I'll give them something good, and you call up fucking Kledex, like it's like, yeah, I got something for you guys. Don't worry, I got you.
Can I ask you a question, Clutch? I was talking with Levin last night. Evening for me, night for Levin.
Yeah.
And he said that you have quite a sleep schedule. Can I ask you
I
about that?
mean, yeah, I live
Because he
on
works for an
NA.
American org.
Yeah, I work on an NA schedule, but then random days I'll just feel like, yeah, I CBA staying late, so I'll just sleep like a normal human being. So I'll stay up until like 6, 7 a.m. every day, but then random day I'll just sleep at 11 p.m. and wake up at 8.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's
Like
crazy.
today, I went to bed like 1:30 today and woke up at 9:30.
Yeah.
Mm.
Do you think if they called the game Fort Day, you'd have a better sleep
Okay,
schedule?
yeah, maybe.
All right. And with that being said, see you next week. Peace out.